When I started work as a trainee lawyer 2 years ago, I was in £60,000 of student debt and had spent years pinching pennies, trying to make the most of student discounts and really being thrifty with my money. One of my goals was, and still is, over the next sort of 5 to 15 years, to create financial freedom for myself. And I knew, having read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that in order to do that, I have to stop working for money and start making money work for me. That is the number one thing that differentiates Rich Dad from Poor Dad. Essentially, I needed to be able to save and invest enough money into various different investments. That could be businesses, that could be property, that could be the stock market, in order to generate income passively so that in a 10 or 15 year time span, I would have enough income to pay off my student debt over time, and then also enough income to essentially choose how I want to spend my time. So if I want to carry on in a career as a lawyer, I absolutely can and will do that, but only if it's by choice, not by necessity of needing and being tied to my salary. So in today's video, particularly given the current climate in which everyone's money is increasingly stretched and everything is costing more, I want to share 20 money saving tips from frugal people that I've picked up, or just from reading, listening, and a general obsession with personal finance. I absolutely think we should obviously be enjoying our lives, particularly as young adults, before we have like huge financial commitments to children, etc. And so hopefully these 20 tips will be realistic, will allow you to continue to do the things you really love and enjoy, while also putting away some money each month and moving towards financial freedom. Tip number one is to set up direct debits for the day after you get paid. Essentially, as soon as money comes into your account, let's say I get paid £2,500 a month, a healthy amount, post-tax, I then pay out my rent, so £750 of rent, that goes out the next day. If I have a phone bill, that gets paid out the next day. I have it set up so that is my direct debit day. So phone bill, £50. Any expenses, so for example, Beth and I each pay an amount into a sort of joint account that we use for food, etc. every month. The amount that I have to pay into that every month comes straight out. Another £200 on that, that's £1,000 in total gone out. My bills also get paid, that's another £200 out. I know that I've spent £1,200, leaving me with £1,300. I then automatically set up that same next day after I get paid all of my investments to come out of my account. So if I'm making an investment into an ISA, like stocks and shares ISA, or if I'm buying some art on Masterworks, today's sponsor, more about them later, that money comes straight out of my account on the day after I get paid, so that I know for the rest of the month exactly how much money I'm gonna have to spend. I take that amount after all of my expenses and my investments, divide it by 4 in my head, and then I have a very good idea of what I can afford to spend each week, and I can kind of keep track of my spending habits and just work out, like, have I spent £100 on a night out and I need to cut back a bit this week, or have I actually not spent that much money and I can afford to do a little bit more. It allows me to kind of spend that amount completely guilt-free, knowing that I have that money to do with as I please. Personally, I really hate budgeting and tracking spending. I find it takes ages to work out exactly what you're spending money on. I find it makes me feel really guilty about spending anything. Overall, for me, just a kind of miserable thing to do. So I much prefer this method. Final tip here, if you're thinking, Liam, actually my phone bill comes out, I don't have a choice when that comes out, then just transfer the money on the day after you get paid into the account that you pay it from. Just have 2 accounts running. So basically you have a spending account, your salary goes into it, and all of your expenses come out of it on the day after you get paid. You can then pay from there throughout the course of the rest of the month from that other account. But if you have that one account where money comes in, all expenses go out the next day, then you know how much you have that month. Next tip, envision what your life would look like with financial security, with financial freedom. I'm just about to release another video about motivation, the power of motivation on the human mind, and what you can do to feel motivated. But essentially this is as part of my kind of practice of each morning envisaging where I see myself in 3 or 5 years. I include within those thoughts, when I'm walking around the park, what would my life feel like if I didn't have to have a job, if I chose to have a job because I like doing it and because, yes, I earn good money doing it, but actually I had enough income from other places and from my investments to be able to choose exactly how I spend my time. And I really find that kind of practicing daily, or at least a few times a week, imagining what that financial freedom will feel like really, really helps me to just switch my brain whenever I'm kind of tempted to make a kind of ridiculous purchase or spend money on something I don't really need, or I have Deliveroo open. And I know this week I've kind of spent too much money already, but I'm like kind of feeling lazy. It just forces me to think, actually, like this £20 does matter if this is a systematic behavior of overspending over the long term. Stop, be responsible, and kind of like know that this spending isn't going to make that big a difference to my life. Third is to sign up for price comparison updates. So this is a very relevant one for me. I literally just received an email just before I sat down to make this from Compare the Market saying my home insurance is about to be up for renewal and I could have home insurance from £108 a year. And I had a couple of weeks earlier received an Admiral email when I went back through that says my insurance premium is about to be £200. Well, I could easily have not looked elsewhere for a better deal, but being signed up through a price comparison website for yearly updates on stuff like home insurance, car insurance, just means that it's kind of effortless for me. They automatically send me those quotes. It reminds me to look out in the market again every year. And I think you honestly can probably save £300 to £500 a year just by doing that quick 15-minute switch across your different insurance products. Next tip, and sorry, Apple fans, this one's not gonna be popular, avoid brand loyalty. And by this, I mean, where between product A and product B, there is not a huge quality difference. Don't just go with the brand that you kind of historically have bought or you feel like you have some loyalty to. Instead, shop around. If there is a brand that you really feel like associates with your values and you really love, then yeah, sure, buy that product. But if there is a phone that you think has comparable quality to an iPhone, for example, then don't just buy the super expensive iPhone because you think you need to have an Apple iPhone. Instead, shop around, prioritize what the features are that you need, and then buy the product that makes most sense for you. Like for me, having an iPhone 14 Pro as a content creator who literally makes money from creating beautiful videos and images makes sense because this has an amazing camera on it, or 3 amazing cameras, and I really love like all of the apps and functionality I have set up and the workflows I have with my editors. Like this for me is a huge productivity tool. But for other people, it may make sense not to spend like over £1,000 on a phone. Tip number 5, buy ready/easy meals. And I guess this is kind of controversial, but effectively what I try to do on a weekly basis is have at least like 2 or 3 meals that are basically just like bung in the oven, generally quite healthy ready meals, or things that pasta parcels that you literally just put in some boiling water and some sauce in the microwave and it's done in 10 minutes. Because I know that I have a busy life. I know that it's really easy for me not to cook, and I know that it's so easy for me just to go on Deliveroo and order something, which is crazily expensive. So spending £3 to £5 on a decent healthy ready meal is way cheaper than the £20 to £25 I usually spend on a meal just for me on Deliveroo. If I can get 1 takeaway a week rather than maybe 4, which I honestly could quite easily do, that's a £60 to £70 a week saving, which is £3,640 a year, or about 11% of my post-tax first year trainee lawyer salary. Next tip, say no to expensive friends. So this doesn't mean never see expensive friends. It just means if you have friends who, spend hundreds of pounds on a night out, or who, if you go shopping with them, you'll likely end up shopping some really expensive shop and buying something because they always buy stuff and spending hundreds of pounds you don't have. Either spend less time with that friend, or probably better, just suggest other activities. Say no to the shopping trip and instead suggest going for a walk around the park. Tip number 7, carry a water bottle and a coffee cup. So, just from an environmental perspective, single-use plastic, obviously not great, but also just buying bottled water around is so flippin' expensive now. It's often like £2 or £3 a bottle. If you're buying 2 of those a day, it really adds up pretty quickly. Similarly, if you carry a reusable coffee cup with you, most coffee shops give you money off your coffee. Next up, we have to consider commuting costs when deciding where to live. So the rental market, at least in the UK, has gone kind of crazy at the moment. So rents are really, really high. And I think the temptation is often for people to say, okay, actually I could save like £500 a month if I live just a little bit further out of London, for example. But actually what they don't consider is that rent and mortgage is one cost, but inherently tied to that is also the cost of commuting. So if you're commuting from some commuter towns around London in the UK, your commuting costs can be as high as around £6,000 a year, which for me at least is, 4 months rent. It's like a crazy amount of money. So definitely make sure you factor in when you're doing your maths on where it's best to live, A, the time you'll lose commuting, but also the cost of commuting. Next tip, do a subscriptions audit. So scroll through your banking app and just look, how much money am I spending on these different subscriptions each month, and work out, are there any subscriptions you could cut back on? And then kind of tied into that, next tip number 10, is to share subscriptions. So for example, like Beth and I paying for 2 separate Netflix subscriptions would kind of be crazy. Instead, we actually share the Netflix subscription with our parents, so we don't pay for Netflix, we're just on their account. We then pay for Amazon Prime, which a couple of our parents use, and Beth's family then has an Apple Music subscription, so we get that through the family plan. So for Amazon Prime, Netflix, and Apple Music, we just pay for Amazon Prime. As I mentioned, a huge part of becoming financially free is having enough money each month to put away a small amount into long-term investments. And one of the apps that I use to invest is Masterworks, today's sponsor. As I grow in my career and my earnings rise, but I also become more and more pressed for time, I'm increasingly looking for smart investments that will enable me to build a diversified portfolio of assets that hopefully grow in value over the long term, without me needing to spend lots of time learning and making complex investment decisions. My personal approach to investing, even more so given the current geopolitical and macroeconomic uncertainty, is therefore to invest gradually in a diverse range of assets and asset classes, and hold those assets for the medium to long term. So when I heard about Masterworks, I was really keen to start using the platform and to tell you about them. Masterworks enables investors to gain access to the high-end art market. The art market itself has doubled S&P 500 returns over the last 25 years and has shown even stronger performance at times of high inflation. On top of that, contemporary art has a negative correlation with other asset classes. The only problem, it costs millions of dollars to add blue chip art to your portfolio. Well, that is until now. Masterworks analyzes millions of data points to identify which paintings seem most likely to rise in value, acquires the painting and breaks it up into SEC qualified shares for you to invest in. Masterworks has so far offered over 130 paintings on their platform with 500,000 users. To date, they've sold 6 paintings for an average net return to investors of 29%. As a result, demand for art is high and there is a waitlist to access Masterworks, but my viewers can skip it by just clicking the link in the description. Alrighty, next tip is to buy furniture on local Facebook groups or Facebook Marketplace, or even eBay. So we picked up, when we moved into our flat here, a table and chairs for £100, like a whole table and really nice chairs that probably cost about £80 each new. We got our friends who were moving to Germany, we got their sofa for free, and we also picked up a desk chair from Facebook Marketplace for £50. I've actually been really shocked like how much value you can get from Facebook Marketplace or Facebook groups. People generally, like even Beth and I have done it at times, have stuff that's way more valuable, but honestly they just want rid of it. They can't be bothered with the hassle of properly selling it for like what it's actually worth. So they kind of just really undervalue it. It's like, come pick it up, take it away from us. We don't want this anymore. Just get it gone. So you really can pick up some absolute bargains. Tip number 12 is the meal plan. It's kind of well known, but like shopping with a list is so much easier. First of all, you don't spend as much money on random stuff, but mainly for Beth and I, the biggest problem when we don't have a list is I'll just kind of go around the shop and be like, we could have that meal one day. Oh, we could have that meal another day. We could have that meal another day, as I go around the shop. And then we end up buying way too much food because I haven't actually planned, oh wait, we're both out for dinner on Tuesday and Thursday, and I have work drinks on Monday until late, so probably won't be until late, or I'll have dinner at work. And actually we only needed 3 meals and I bought 6. We waste a whole ton of food and money in the process. Yeah, what is it?
It's more cost effective.
Okay, we got a bonus tip from Beth. It's not another one because I already had 20 in my list. Beth's bonus tip is to either share cooking with other people. I think my colleagues would personally find it a bit weird if I went into work and offered to cook for them. But I do like the suggestion, like make bigger portions. So like if you make, for example, we often make, or actually Beth makes it, chili con carne, chili sin carne actually. Veggie chili. She'll make enough for probably like 4 or 5 meals, and then we just put individual portions into freezer bags in the freezer, and then whenever I'm home alone and can't be bothered to cook, I can just grab one out of the freezer. Bob's your uncle. £20 on delivery, saved right there. Thanks, Beth.
No worries. Anytime.
Okay, we're back on with my actual tips. Next one, aggressively negotiate phone deals. So I think people, young people at least, I hope, kind of generally know this, but my parents have historically been terrible at it. They basically enter into a phone contract with a phone, £54 a month, and after 2 years they then just stay on that, paying £54 a month when they should have had their tariff reduced. Now I think that's kind of been stopped, like phone companies aren't allowed to get away with doing that anymore, but it is still the case that if you continue your contract, you're probably getting a worse deal than you could be. So when you are getting a new phone contract, if it's one with a phone, find the best deal on the market and basically don't say no for an answer. Call up, ring through to the number on the phone when you call your network is "I'm thinking of leaving," then tell them about the exact deal you've got. Chances are they'll get within a couple of pounds of meeting it. And then I would recommend you just stay with your current network if they've offered you, within a couple of pounds, because it's a bit of a faff changing, not a huge faff, but at least for me personally, a couple of pounds a month isn't worth it, but up to you. Tip number 14 is to sell stuff. So old stuff you have, there are websites where you can sell old mobile phones, for example. Beth's top tip was to sell old textbooks. I know she did that a bunch at university and you actually get quite a lot of money for them. I'm also a little bit of a clean freak, so often Beth and I will do like a general clean out of our house and we'll amass a ton of stuff for the boot fair. I had like a load of stuff in my parents' loft that I sold 2 summers ago at a boot fair. I think I made like £350 in a weekend selling stuff like video games and stuff that I no longer use. Next, make sure that you have a rewards debit and/or credit card. So I personally have a debit card at the moment with Chase. They have an amazing introductory offer. Again, not sponsored or anything, but it's an amazing deal. You get 1% cashback on a debit card for the first year. Plus they have 5% interest on like Save the Change savings account. And I think now up to 2.1% interest on their savings account, which is really strong in the market. Overall, like a really strong offering. They're just launched, so they're trying to get people to use them and I would recommend it. Then also a credit card and Amex. Just find the best one that's available at the time and make sure you then use it and pay it off. Do not get stung by interest on credit cards because that will absolutely wipe out any benefit of getting one. Number 16, also linked to credit cards, is to get a card that doesn't charge you abroad. So the Chase one doesn't, but there are a whole bunch of cards out there, and especially like all of the startup banks, Revolut, etc., generally give you very good rates when you're making transactions abroad. So just make sure you have one of those. I have one card that gives me like £1 charge every time I use it. Such a pain. So yeah, just make sure that your card doesn't charge you for making transactions abroad. Next tip is to get takeout, or takeaway in the UK, from your, I don't know why I wrote takeout, but I did. Get a takeout from your own home. So by that, I mean, when you're going on a walk around the park, why don't you just pack your reusable coffee cup in your rucksack and use that when you're out and about, or just take one on the way to work. Take a Nespresso pod coffee in your reusable coffee cup to work rather than buying a Pret on the way into work. Similarly, take some leftover dinner or the chili sin carne that Beth cooked last night into work the next day, heat it up in the microwave rather than buying the £12 salad. You don't have to do it all the time, but a couple of times a week could save you £20 to £40 a week. Okay, we are nearly there, 3 to go, and this is a big one. Understand that saving is better than earning. So there's a saying, it's something like a penny earned is a penny saved, or a penny, something like that. A pound earned is a pound saved. Wait, what is the saying? No, it's a pound saved is a pound earned. Yeah, or a penny saved is a penny. Anyway, the point is that that isn't right. Like, a penny saved is not a penny earned, because if I save £1 by not buying Deliveroo, then that is £1 I get to keep. If I earn an extra £1, then I pay tax on that, and for most people that would mean that actually they're probably left with 60 to 70% of that money. So, around 60 or 70p. So actually £1 earned is like 60 or 70p, which is obviously less than £1 saved, which I get all of plus interest over time. So if you cannot buy, a £20 Deliveroo, it's actually kind of the same as earning £24 or £25. Penultimate tip, and this one is again from Beth, is to push your employer to give you more. So in some jobs like mine, it's not necessarily that applicable, but in Beth's industry where she's contracted with different employers quite regularly, she has found that over salary, like it's worth negotiating and really putting yourself out there to say, actually, you know what, I value myself, I want more money than I had for the last 3 months. And second of all, if there are things that you need like screens or monitors or laptops to do your job, or you think you need to travel for work and they should give you that back as expenses. Don't let them kind of take you for granted. Instead, push the point. Actually, no, I need this, monitor, so please can I have one? And she's found the vast majority of the time your work will say yes. And finally, buy quality for longevity. So again, last tip, also courtesy, or at least inspired by Beth. Historically, she has had a very, I'm going to buy the cheapest, low quality item. She has been a big fast fashion user, not because she doesn't care about the environment, but because she genuinely always has been just like super thrifty and unwilling to spend money. So for example, shoes, she's bought like £5 or £10 pairs of shoes from Primark. Actually, she's ended up spending way more money on shoes because the shoes last her 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, and then she has to buy a new pair. She has now moved away from that, mainly because of the environmental reasons, but actually has found she saves money by buying for the long term, buying something quality, and then keeping it for years. So yeah, those are the tips. And just as a final thought, like to save £10,000 in a year, you need to be saving £883 a month. That is a lot, and I appreciate that lots of people's salaries aren't as high as mine or Beth's, and we are in a very fortunate position. But I do genuinely believe that if you are saving £50, £60, £70 a week on takeaways that you would otherwise be getting, if you're being really diligent with your subscriptions, sharing subscriptions, you're cutting out a few, if you kind of then have 1% cash back on your bank account, if you then also have a decent interest rate, which is coming into play at the moment, you really can get some decent interest rates out there. It's actually not impossible to save a good few £100s, if not close to £883 a month. And at the end of a year, you could have £10,000 of savings. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to give that context on kind of everything I just shared. Hopefully you have found this video helpful, and please do let me know if you have any top money saving frugality tips in the comments below, and I look forward to speaking again very, very soon.